Hey guys, what is up? This is Matthew Davis, me once again. Welcome back to the movie review, aka After I Saw. This time it is going to be on Keeper. This is another film from Osgood Perkins, and Osgood Perkins has been on a roll when it comes to his film career, having made one movie last year, and now he has made 2 movies this year so far. And with this film, we follow a wife who becomes isolated in a secluded cabin, and she has to fend off an unspeakable evil. Like I mentioned before, directed by Osgood Perkins, the director of Longlegs and The Monkey, both of which I really enjoyed. The Monkey was a very fun Final Destination-like film, while, having commentary, but at the same time still being a bloody fun time. It wasn't particularly scary, but it was definitely a very enjoyable film in my opinion. Longlegs was definitely much slower, but it managed to be mysterious in that same sense of something like Silence of the Lambs, my favorite movie of all time, and just bringing more tribute to that while also doing its own thing. So with Keeper, I was really hoping that, he would still show that he is very imaginative when it comes to what he brings on screen in terms of horror. Because the dude definitely seems to have a very unique take when it comes to horror. Unfortunately, this movie I don't think is nearly as memorable as his previous 2 films, but now look, there are going to be a lot of people that will find this movie very boring because it is another type of movie that, tries to have a build-up because it's very slow-paced, but that's not usually a bad thing when it comes to horror. Sometimes it really manages to pay off. Tons of great horror movies to come out in previous years have managed to, be slow, but managed to really have a climax to pay off. But there really isn't a whole lot that happens when it comes to character interactions to really have you fully invested. It's definitely interesting when it comes to the performances and characters, that appear. It just doesn't really feel like they have much to do in terms of, their appearances and all. I like how it doesn't really give you too much information until much later on, which I feel like is a really big positive when it comes to movies like this, just having you guess. And there are some times where it can be a bit creepy, but at the same time, there are some scares that I thought were a little cheap. I mean, they had a purpose. It just didn't really feel like it was as effective as it tried to be. Now, there are some things about this movie that I think work in terms of the performances. The main actress, Tatiana Maslany, she was excellent in the movie. She definitely tries her very best when it comes to her performance, and I feel like for the most part, it really manages to pay off. And I will say the last act was something that I wasn't expecting, so I do appreciate it for not having a lot of predictability. But here's the thing, because the movie is a slow burner, I feel like it's going to be one of those movies where it's going to be really hard to invest because not a whole lot happens in terms of, putting, where a new part of the storyline is going in terms of, a creepy thing happening here and another one there where you really have to wrap your head around. Elements like that are there, but it's not really enough to have us fully engage into what's going on. As sometimes there are just parts of the movie where it just kind of feels a little generic in terms of, things are going on in the house. I mean, it's not a haunted house movie or anything like that, but it's more on the lines of being just, something that we've seen many times, just with a different director. And that's kind of a shame. But in the end, guys, I really didn't have too much to say about Keeper. I know I've been pretty negative on it, but I didn't think it was a bad movie. I just feel like there were some ideas in here that could have worked in a way that just make it feel like, it's worth the slow pace. Because when you have a movie that's slow, you should at least make it feel interesting. And most of the time, it does try to do that, but it oftentimes feels like I'm watching something that I've seen before. And that's a shame because while his previous films are something that I have seen before, he still managed to do it in a way that feels very unique and really has you thinking a lot more. Well, this film, I just feel like it doesn't really have too much to offer. I mean, it does get better as the film progresses, but it's one of those movies that I don't feel like is as memorable as, it should be. And that's a shame too. It's not a bad film, but it's not something that I feel like I'm going to keep in my memory forever. Seriously, what is going on this weekend? Why are so many directors releasing movies that are just fine when they've made so many great films in the past? I don't know. It's kind of a weird weekend, but hopefully, his next movie, he'll finally show that he has more of that touch to him, that same horror touch. Because hey, it definitely looks like his style. So yeah, I will give it that as well. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and maybe subscribe for more. You can also follow me on Twitter, Instagram, or maybe Blue Sky. Links are in the description. And I'll see you guys later. Ward out.